Welcome to Media Row, everyone. I'm your host, as always, Justin Miller. Happy to have you here on this Wednesday with Woodley, where each Wednesday we have the head coach of the Drake football team, Joe Woodley, coming on the show. He will be with us here in just a few moments as the Drake Bulldogs are playoff bound, going up to South Dakota to take on the Coyotes, the 11th seed South Dakota Coyotes, a team that beat Drake by 21 in week 3 of the season. And now Drake trying to get their revenge and trying to advance in the FCS playoffs. So a lot to break down in today's show. But before we get to that, as always, make sure whether you guys are viewing on YouTube or listening on wherever you get your podcast, make sure to do us the favor and subscribe, like, comment, rate, all that good stuff. We greatly appreciate it. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, we are very thankful for each and every one of you for supporting this show. And make sure to go and support the show all over social media at Media Row Pod on Instagram and Twitter, as well as Facebook and TikTok. So make sure to follow us there for clips from the shows, from also just fun interactions with the listeners and insights of the games, as well as coach interviews and player interviews. And then we are also very thankful to our sponsor in Kelly's Little Nipper at 1701 East Grand Avenue in Des Moines. It's really cool. Like, if you need, there's not many reasons outside of just the wonderful people and the great atmosphere and food and drinks you are going to get at Kelly's Little Nipper that should drive you to 1701. But if you need an extra reason to get to Kelly's Little Nipper, Jeff is feeding the entire football team, doing a Thanksgiving style, just buffet for the team on Thursday. And that's really cool. And so if you need more reasons to go and support a local business like Kelly's Little Nipper, there you go. And when you go there, just make sure you use that keyword that you hear on this show all the time, in Woodley, and your first drink is on the house. So very thankful to Jeff and all of his people at Kelly's Little Nipper for being there since day one, supporting this show. So now that we got our housekeeping items finished, let's not keep them waiting any longer. Now joining us for our weekly Wednesday with Woodley, the head coach of the Drake Bulldogs, Joe Woodley. So, Coach, thank you as always for doing this for me, coming on the show. I guess I'll just jump right into it. How quick did the switch flip for you from Sunday? You see your team's name up on ESPNU, everyone's cheering, to then, okay, we got work to do.
Yeah. And we were certainly anticipating that, so I guess it didn't come as a total shock. And um, but the I guess the positive in this, somewhat, I suppose, is it's an opponent that we've already played. Now that was a long time ago. Both teams have changed, and I don't know that we've drastically changed because it's a program I'm familiar with, and certainly some guys on my staff are familiar with. We've got acquaintances on that other staff, so we have an interest in them even when we're not playing them. Their head coach is a really good friend of mine, and really kind of followed them all year, and have been following them for the past, whatever, it's been 7 years that he's been up there. And certainly a place that you're, a program that you're familiar with. Now, the nuance, the X and O's, you always got to dig into that and just see what's changed from the first time you played them until now. But I have a pretty decent idea of certainly what they believe in on both sides of the ball, because quite frankly, it's pretty similar to what we do. I guess we're all unique in our own ways as coaches, but I think we have the same kind of belief system, the way, just kind of the way football should be played, and certainly respect that from them. And, uh, you have a decent idea of what you're going to get. Now, personnel has changed over the course of the last couple months since we played them, whether it be injuries or, position battles that got worked out from early in the year till now. Just a number of things at play there that are different. You got to pick up on those, and And quite honestly, we didn't play one of our better football games that day, of course, and sometimes the opponent has a lot to do with it. They were certainly clicking on all cylinders for the most part. I'm sure they felt like they made maybe had some things that didn't go their way as well, but they soundly beat us. I know that, and we've got to bounce back from that. And I think we did at the time, once we kind of got into our league play, certainly bounced back and regained some confidence and certainly playing with a little more confidence now. And that's the beauty of this. Everybody kind of gets a second life when you get to the playoffs. And I know our guys are certainly looking forward to this opportunity.
In the early part of this week, just what have the feelings been around the office, on the practice field, in the video rooms? Just is there a different kind of juice in the building right now?
Yeah, I think there is, and I think that's really it's just natural. I don't think it's something you got to manufacture or anything like that. The reality is there's only a handful of teams that are left playing in the country, and it's you earn the right to do that. Our guys have certainly earned the right to do that. South Dakota, of course, has their backs were against the wall really early in the season, and they have just really gotten hot, as I'd argue we did for the most part. So, and that's why you're in the playoffs, and now you want to go see what you're like against going up against the elite teams in the country, and it's why we do this. It's not the only reason we do it, but it's a huge part of it. Because we're all competitors, and we want to play the very best and see what we're made of. But yeah, I just think it's something inside of you. You know, it, every coach is going to say, yeah, it's just another game. And the reality is, you got to treat it as such. You don't need to get too high or too low or whatever. But I do think it brings a little bit more edge to you when you're in the playoffs. It's just fortunately I've been a part of a lot of playoff teams and been in these shoes before, practicing over Thanksgiving, and there's nothing quite like it. It's just a great feeling to have, and again, it's a sense of pride, and our guys should feel that sense of pride, and really. I'm just ecstatic that I get to spend another week, a guaranteed week with them, because, as we got down the stretch during the regular season, I said, hey, listen, guys, you have XYZ guaranteed games left with whatever games we had left in the season. I said, that's the only guarantees you have left right now. And you get to earn the right to go earn more games, so to speak, and we've earned at least one more, and because the reality is there is no tomorrow. There's no tomorrow unless you take care of business, and that's certainly our goal this week. Just put our best foot forward each day, and hope it translates on Saturday.
You brought up how you've been fortunate enough to be in this position before. You've been successful in this position before. I'm not going to ask you to spill your secrets, but when you have a 13-5 postseason record, just what in your mind leads you to the success that you've had in the postseason?
Yeah. Anything specific, whether it be a scheduled thing. I think, just having done that in the past, I think, certainly helped me to this point. Now, this is a little bit different animal that this playoff that we're in right now is a little bit different animal than the one I'm used to in. It's, we're a non-scholarship program playing a scholarship program. So there's obviously some things there that are at play, but, you still got to take the same approach, and like I just mentioned, we just got to try and put our best foot forward and be the best that we can be, and give ourselves an opportunity in this game to make it tough on them, and give ourselves a chance. But yeah, I don't think there's anything in particular that I can point to that says why we had, or why I've been a part of success in the past. A lot of that, as I've always said, is, what kind of talent you have on your roster, and uh, because that's the reality. I mean, players win the games. They're the ones that are out there doing it. We got to do our best to put them in a position to succeed, and our margins are just, they're razor thin when you're going up against a team like South Dakota, a team from the Missouri Valley, which has kind of dominated I shouldn't say kind of has dominated FCS football for a number of years now. So certainly got our hands full, but I'm confident with the guys that we have in our locker room and coaches I have on my staff that we're going to do everything we can to put our best plan together and try and give ourselves a chance.
You brought up something a little while ago about how, just it's human nature in these high pressure or exciting times getting to the postseason to have a little more juice in the building. But for you as a coach, you do want to try to have a balance where you've mentioned this before of not getting too high, not getting too low. When did you start honing in on those emotions as a coach throughout your time as a defensive coordinator with your dad and just throughout your experience in the postseason?
Just think it comes with time. You coaching enough football games. Um, yeah, because you realize it really doesn't do you any good to be one way or the other. And as the leader of the program, if you've got a coach that's doing this all the time, what
Hmm.
do you expect your players to do? And that's not to say I don't lose my cool every once in a while, certainly do. And I've had moments this year, but I would like to think for the most part, I try not to overreact, whether it be good or bad. It's more so the good. I never overreact. It's more the more on the other end because when something good happens, my mind immediately goes to what's next or what did anything happen on that play? Was there a penalty? Was there an injury? Was there all those kinds of things?
Yeah, because
Those
I
are the
heard
things
you
that
say that to Travin Ross, how with Herman's run, you're like, oh, yeah, I was looking for the penalty marker.
yeah. Once he got about kind of in the open field, I didn't even see him cross the goal line. I was just looking back the whole way and. And then of course I should have been looking at my own dang sideline. We get a sideline warning because it was guys were going crazy. And again, that's just having that poise in that moment. And but sometimes I think officials need to have a little bit of awareness. Now I'm just glad that those penalties because I thought at one time you didn't used to get a warning, and maybe I'm off on that, but at least they give you that. But at the end of the day, you got to act like you've been there before too. So, like I said, I guess there was one. But and then even the extra point after that is where we got one after the play, and then that backs us up on the kickoff. So in my mind, a lot of good things just happen there. And then you kind of have to switch gears. So it's more so when things don't go well is sometimes when I kind of I don't want to say lose it, but they'll see maybe a little bit different side of me than they're used to seeing. And I've never, I'm not in this to ever berate a kid or anything like that, but but that's what this game teaches you. The second you think you're too good for it or whatever, it'll humble you. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I just think that's important as a leader. You can't be up and down all the time, and you just gotta try and number one be who you are. I'm not saying that, and some guys it works for them to carry those waves of emotion and they handle them pretty well. But I feel like I've just learned over time that it doesn't do you any good to be one way or the other. And I'll say really about my entire time as a coordinator, I did ride those waves of emotions probably too much as a younger guy. But the beauty that I had was working for my dad and just seeing how he did it. I thought he was the master of moments and when the right time was, to maybe get on a kid or get on a coach. But he also knew the times when you didn't need to do that. And I was always observant of that and observant of him. And I'd like to think I took a lot of those traits from him, learned those traits from him. But again, I'm still who I am. And that was his biggest piece of advice to me when I was a young coach, be yourself, but there's still some things you've got to be conscious of and be aware of. And I like to think I've done that over time. You'd have to ask somebody else. You'd have to ask the guys that have played for me or the coaches that coach for me. And like I said, it's warranted, sometimes good and bad. And but I just think you got to try and kind of walk that fine line there.
So you have two young coordinators, first year coordinators and Adam Cox and Kyle Kemp. You've had success as a coordinator and a head coach in the postseason. This is kind of their first time when they're calling the shots with the headset in the postseason. Just where have you seen them grow throughout the season, and where does it give you confidence that they will be successful in these high pressure scenarios?
I see those guys growing every day, and quite honestly, they're pretty mature beyond their years, and those two, really in particular, they've been at a very high level of football, and they've seen how it's done, being around some really good people and really good head coaches. So I think those are the types of things that prepared those guys for, for the moments that they've had this year. It's because they had such great mentors, whether it be, with Adam being over in Iowa, he was around some of the people I respect most in this business, especially on the defensive side of the football. Then of course Kirk Ferentz, who I think is as good as there is in college football, stood the test of time. He's going to do it his way, but not in a arrogant way. He's just I just think it doesn't get any more classy than Kirk Ferentz, and Adam was around that as a player. Number one, played in big time games. He was on the undefeated team at Iowa when they about I think it was Michigan State they lost to in the Big Ten title game, and they were about in the Final Four or whatever. So he saw the best of the best there. Those were high pressure moments. He was a player, but then he came on as a coach. And we all know how much success Iowa's had over the years. He spent 4 or 5 years over there. Just watching how those guys operate. He may not have had a huge role, but he watched those guys. He paid attention to those guys in those moments, and I see not that I was there, but I can imagine, he learned a lot from those guys, and I certainly got all the confidence in the world in Adam and what he's doing for our defense right now. He's ready for this. He's prepared for this moment. He's just one of the as good a young coach as I've been around in a long, long time, and I could say the exact same thing for Kyle. Again, much like Ferentz, I think Matt Campbell's about as good as it gets in the business. I mean, I just think we're so lucky in this state to have two people representing the major universities of this state, the state flagship universities of this state, with Iowa and Iowa State, with Coach Ferentz. Of course, he's a legend, and Matt Campbell's certainly on his way to becoming one. There's no doubt about that. And Kyle got to see how that guy operates day in and day out, and I've got such immense respect for Matt. And then you look at some of the guys that Kyle worked for, over on the offensive side of the ball, guys that have moved on, moved up to higher levels. He was around that as a player. He was around that as an assistant coach up there, and the success that they've had. So he has seen how those, both of our coordinators have seen how those people that they work for, that they're now in that coordinator role. They've seen how those guys handle those big pressure moments. And of course, Iowa's been to major bowl games. Iowa State's, they've both been in conference championship games. They've been in, Fiesta Bowls and Orange Bowls and all those kinds of things. So, and again, seeing it and doing it obviously are two different things. But you can't get experience until you get it. Yeah, that's always one of the things you hear about when it doesn't matter what job it is. Well, you don't have enough experience. Well, yeah, I know. Like I'm trying to get it, and it's just tough to finally, and once you break through, and that's really one of the things, that my dad did for me, and I'd like to think I do for all these young coaches right now is he just kind of threw me in the deep end. He wasn't micromanaging me. He wasn't always looking over my shoulder, and that allowed me to grow. Because essentially it was I don't want to say it was like my product, but I was in charge of that unit that was out on the field, and I just took so much pride in that. And this is what's going to show up. When a lot of people come and watch you play on Saturday, opposing coaches are going to see how you play on film. I just took pride in that and pride in my work, and I'd like to think I do that for these two guys. And I think they tell you I'm not in their business too much. Every once in a while, I'll say, maybe think about this or think about that, just based off my experiences. And I think that's, again, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but that's just the way I choose to do it as a leader is, because my job is also to, coach the coaches as well, because I've got a bunch of youngsters around me. I'm 45 years old, and I think Adam's the next oldest at 32. So 13 years is, quite a bit of time. But again, I couldn't be more happy with both of those guys. That they both get along really well, and you'd think that would be a given, in coaching, but it's not. I've heard and seen situations where offensive and defensive coordinators don't see eye to eye on how kind of play the game. And again, that still comes back to me is, what are we going to look like as a team? Because obviously it's my philosophy. They have certain things they like doing, but I kind of give them a philosophical approach of how I want to look and feel and play, and that's essentially, that's why I sought those guys out because of their backgrounds, and I just think we're all on the same page, of how we're going to play, and sometimes it's certainly not sexy at times, but winning football games certainly is, and I just think we have I'd like to think we have a pretty good formula for how to get that done, and these guys have bought into doing that.
You brought up how there was a philosophy and a style, a look that you were wanting Drake to play with at the start of the year. Just how did that change over time with injuries, with new players getting opportunities like Nick Herman?
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever wavered. I guess I'm a little bit bullheaded that way, and again, I just feel like, it doesn't make me right. There's a million ways to have success, but I just feel like there's a certain way that I don't know if comfortable is the way to put it, but a way that, has kind of been tested over time. And, as my time as an assistant, my time as a head coach to this point, I just feel like, there's a formula of how of what it takes to be successful, and that's always, really at the end of the day is just if you play good defense, you're always going to have a chance. You kind of want to start there, and that's where my dad, when we started that Grandview program from scratch, and he gave me the role of defensive coordinator, even though I certainly probably wasn't ready for it, but he knew I was going to take pride in it, and he said, we're going to build this team around this defense. It's going to keep us in games. It's going to keep us competitive, and give us an opportunity to win every game in the fourth quarter. We're going to be really good on special teams, and I'm not saying it's necessarily in this order, but it was just kind of where his mind was at. We're not going to beat ourselves in special teams because I think a lot of teams do, and and then the offense is going to kind of play off of that, but we're still going to be an attacking style and take some opportunities down the field, stretch the field offensively, but we're not going to put the ball in harm's way. And I'm not saying we've been perfect in that regard, but again, that's kind of the approach at least where my mind goes to immediately. And again, I'm a defensive coach at heart, so but the common denominator in all of this is, Justin, you got to get good people to do it. And that's coaches, players. It's You can't just roll the balls out with anybody and just say, okay, boom, 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 this is how we're going to do it, and they just expect that it's going to happen. It takes work, it takes preparation, communication, organization, all those things, and we've feel like we've been able to fast track that to some extent. This year, it's been a lot. There was a lot of time and effort that went into the success that we had this year. And again, I'm well aware that there was some pretty good players here when we got here, and that's what made the job enticing, just because of the success that they have had, and because that's another thing that you've got to kind of coach into guys is believing they can win. And there was already a bunch of guys here that believed they could do that, and we just kind of implemented what we wanted to do. And again, I'm sure we look a lot differently than what Drake did a year ago. Certainly, on the offensive side of the ball, just because there wasn't much returning there, and the ones that were had some injuries that that were going to keep them out for the year. So Yeah, like I said, it's been a lot of work, a lot of time, effort, all that good stuff. Like you had mentioned, a lot of adversity, especially over there on the offensive side of the ball with some injuries and guys that just continue to come to work. They're eager to work. They want to work. So it's it's made it enjoyable too along the way.
So you're going up against South Dakota. We talked about how both of these teams they've changed over time since the last time these two saw each other. I mean, I think what it was the third game you guys played this year with South Dakota. So definitely big changes. Like Nick Herman's now a huge factor in the offense. He wasn't getting as many opportunities early on, but just now that you've watched film, what have you seen change from South Dakota the most since the last time you guys saw them?
I think that's what I respect about them most. Obviously, there's nuance, but the thing I see is just a team that's just continued to get better at what they truly believe in. That they were pretty much a brand new team. Their team got gutted a year ago, and it was a national semifinal team. Again, I followed them, and they had a number of guys that got in the portal. And not I wouldn't. It's certainly not because of because this is Coach Johansson's first year. Coach Nielsen, the head coach before, stepped aside or retired. Travis got a job. It certainly wasn't because of that. It was more so they had a lot of talent a year ago, and sometimes money talks, and they've got guys all over the country at Power Four schools, and they had Power Four talent on both of their lines, O and D line. And that is not easy to replace when you're trying to, when you have Power Four offensive linemen and defensive linemen in the Missouri Valley Conference at the FCS level, man, you're going to be really darn good. And so they were still in the early stages of just trying to kind of figure that out. And I still thought they were damn good, obviously, but I know they had they didn't play well in their opener against Iowa State. They went down to Lamar, lost a tough game down there, lost their uh, star running back in that game. And what came from that game, what emerged from that game was another star. Or after that, they brought in number 24, and all he's done is go on to. I think he's leading the FCS in rushing right now. I think his first game, he had over 300 yards against Northern Colorado, and he hasn't really slowed down since. But kind of getting back to your question, Justin, like I said, I've just seen a team that's continuously got better and navigated through the bear of a schedule that the Missouri Valley Conference is. And they go 6-2 in that league, or what? They have two losses in the league, to my knowledge. They beat their cross-state rival, South Dakota State. They're playing at a really high level right now. Just thoroughly impressed with them, and again, it's still they've got talent. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they are really, really good. But I just think they play in such a way that I enjoy. There's a lot of college football I don't enjoy watching. Just be for whatever reasons. I mean, I've got them, but I won't share them. But I just love the way they play on the offensive side of the ball, and certainly on the defensive side of the ball because Coach Johansson and I worked together a long time. We believe in things being a certain way on defense, and again, we share a lot of the same beliefs, and yeah, just again, I just see a team that's just continued to get better, a team that finds ways to win really close ball games because of what they believe in, and obviously and then their special teams are outstanding. They got one of the better kickers in the country, and not a lot of weaknesses on this team. It's just a damn strong, really good football team that's just gotten better throughout the year. And like I said, their back was against the wall for a little bit there, and all they've done is just continue to, at least from my vantage point, is just continue to believe and they played really good football when they've had to.
So this week when you're prepping for South Dakota, how much do you go back and rewatch that week three matchup? Or is that one where you're like, we're a totally different team from back then. Let's put it behind us. Let's just focus on now. So are you going back to the last few games for South Dakota or are you rewatching that one?
We're watching them all. You better know everything. You got because the reality when we played them the first time, we didn't have a ton of tape on them. And really, at least from a defensive perspective, didn't have a lot of four down front. Against them on tape. So we were kind of learning by fire during the game on how they were going to attack us. So yeah, I think it's certainly something that you want to go back and take a peek at and show your guys of maybe we could have been better here, better there, and all of a sudden it's a different ball game. And but I think the story of that game for the most part was really it was a 7 point game with about 5.5 minutes left in the second quarter and third and 13, and they hit a 75-yard touchdown on us. And then in the second half, and they extend the lead to 21-7, and then they steal a field goal right before the half. So it's 20, or I think it was 24-7 or 28. So they might have scored a touchdown before the half. I can't remember now off the top of my head, but I know it was a three possession game at halftime, and then in the third quarter, I think we had two or three two straight turnovers, a three and out, and then it just kind of got going. And again, opponent has a lot to do with that. I'm not sitting here making all kinds of excuses, but just did some things to shoot ourselves in the foot. And like I had mentioned earlier, the margins are razor thin when you get into a playoff situation or you're playing a team as talented as they are. You just can't make those mistakes or self implode. And if we can avoid those types of things, certainly thinks that I think that'll give us a lot better chance. But yeah, I would imagine our guys, that was probably the first thing they did was go back, because we gave them Sunday off. So I would like to think they went and did that right away. Go back and watch that and kind of be ready. But we certainly, yeah, you got to go back and evaluate that again. And we did, the day after the game. And shoot, I think I sit on the defensive bus. I know all of us defensive coaches. We watched it on the bus ride home, and then again on Sunday, and so on and so forth. But I mean, we obviously tabled it for because we just didn't think we'd see him again. And
Yeah.
but now, and not because we didn't think we were going to make the playoffs, but just didn't think we'd play an opponent we already played,
Mhm.
and they thought the same thing. I've had discussion with Coach Johansson, but it is what it is. To me, like I told our guys Sunday, guys, shit, this is just another great opportunity that we have, and you've earned the right to go do this. So. We're excited and excited to get going this week to get in prep for that too.
Do you use any sort of extra? I know you've mentioned before you're not a coach that will feels like you need to do the whole rah, Gene Hackman Hoosiers type of locker room speech. But do you do any sort of extra motivation like Bill Fenley talked about in the post game press conference against the Drake women last week? How he had on the whiteboard the score from 2 years ago when Drake beat Iowa State in the Knapp Center to just like add a little extra fuel. Is there anything like that happening right now? Or do you have that score from week three posted to motivate the players or anything like that?
No, just I again, and I certainly understand why Coach Fenley would do that too. It's again to each his own on that, and I get it, but. Our guys know what the score was. That was just this past year. I get why he
Hmm.
did it. It was a couple of years ago, and maybe some folks in that program weren't around or whatever. But this was whatever 3 months ago, so I don't have a great memory, but I certainly remember the score, and I certainly know that we did not play our best football game, and I don't believe we have this year yet. I'm constantly seeking the perfect game But I do know we can play much better than we did, and again, and that's with all due respect to the opponent, because a lot of the time they have a lot to do with it. But when you do things to beat yourself, that's when it's tough. And again, here I am saying some things that happened on the field. Believe me, us coaches were not very good that day either. There's a lot to go around on that, and I realize that. I know that. But as far as motivation, it should be motivation enough that it's you're playing for one another, you're playing for this school. That should be motivation enough. And really, you can't spend too much time dwelling on the past. You can certainly be aware of it, which we are. And this is we're a different team. They're a different team, than we were 3 months ago, and hopefully we're a much better team. Yeah, we're different. That was Logan's first start. Nick got in at the tail end of that game. Again, I'm just speaking on the offensive side of things. On the defensive side of things, we were still early on in our process of figuring out, learning through this defense. And I think we're all much better right now, but they are too. And that's the reality. But and that's what's going to show up on Saturdays. Who's made the biggest improvement since that day? And hopefully it's the Drake Bulldogs.
To finish up, it is Thanksgiving week. So you've been in this position before of having to prepare for postseason action during Thanksgiving. What was it like when you were a young defensive coordinator and your dad was the head coach at those Thanksgiving dinners? Did you have time? Did you guys watch like any of the NFL games, or was it you finished those mashed potatoes and turkey legs and straight to the film room again?
Yeah, well, first off, we always, at least my choice is always ham
I'm a
on
ham guy too.
Thanksgiving.
I'm not a big turkey guy.
And then yeah, I can't remember if it's Christmas though. My in-laws, they do prime rib, but I think
Ooh.
I'm pretty sure that's on Christmas. I love that change up. But certain, I mean, I don't dislike turkey, but I just prefer ham, and that's
I'm
my
with
mom
you.
would always make ham, and I, growing up as a kid, I only ate my mom's food, none of the relatives, because I just know her cooking, and I knew I loved her cooking, and of course my wife's a great cook too, but yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, I guess the time when we were at Grandview, we were usually playing around this time. I like to think we always handled that pretty well. We always go early in the morning. Now Grandview's a little differently than how I'll approach over. I shouldn't say how I will. We've already set the schedule, but um, fortunate enough in our time over there, at least just looking back at the last six years when I was head coach over there, we always had a home game, and a lot of our kids were from the state of Iowa. A good majority of them, 85 to 90%. So we would practice early in the morning. We'd usually be done around noon with everything, and then I would just cut them loose until the following Friday. So they'd have more than 24 hours off to go see their families. And in the event we had some kids from out of state, they would, maybe go to whether it be an assistant coach's house or, a teammate. That was kind of how it was there. Here, it's a little bit different, because we've got kids from kind of all
Mhm.
over and not easy driving distance. Now we've got, I think Iowa is officially become the most roster spots we have. I think we have 31 or 32 kids from Iowa, and then Illinois is next at like 30. And then it's just like a hodgepodge, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Kansas, Missouri, Colorado. We're kind of all over the map.
What's
So
the
what we
furthest? What's the is
oh
there
we've got I mean we've got California, we've got New York, Florida, all Texas. We got them from all over. So what we're doing, so we'll keep a somewhat similar schedule, but we'll just have a team lunch right after practice on Thursday in the Schickler room, Thanksgiving style. Little Nipper, I think's bringing it over.
nice?
Jeff's bringing it over and doing that on. Thursday, and then we'll cut them loose. It's a little differently because we're traveling. Like I said, I'm
Mhm.
used to being at home, so we'll come back. So they'll get a good portion of the day off Thursday to kind of have a somewhat of a Thanksgiving, and then Friday, let them sleep in a little bit, sleep in a little bit more than normal on a Friday road game because usually we have meetings on Friday morning at 7, practice at 8 in the morning. I think we got us. I think meetings are maybe at 9, practice 10, uh, somewhere in that. I don't have it right in front of me, but and then we'll give them a little bit of time to get ready, and then we'll be. I think we're heading out about 2 o'clock on Friday, and then it's just another road game at that point, and that's where the focus needs to be.
Well, congratulations on a very successful season. Good luck this weekend. Hopefully, it'll be an exciting game. I'm excited to watch and cover it as always. So, really appreciate you taking your time throughout this entire season, being so welcoming, allowing me to cover this team. It's been a blast, and this has been a very easy team to cheer and cover.
I appreciate that, Justin. Again, I appreciate you for your interest in Drake football and covering this team. I know our guys certainly do as well, and and maybe there's an avenue. Again, I don't mean to throw this out to you as we're doing this live, but bringing in a player every once in a while too,
That'd be great.
could certainly do that moving forward. And not that I don't enjoy it, but I think it's always good to celebrate those guys because they're the ones that are out there doing it, or shoot, even one of our assistant coaches or whatever, just to give a little bit more behind the curtain, if you
I
will.
would love that. I would
You
love
bet.
that. So,
You bet.
well, have a great Thanksgiving and good luck this weekend.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you. Thanks.
As always, a huge, huge thank you to Joe Woodley for coming on the show. He's got, a huge game to prep for, and him making time each and every week for us means the world. We're very thankful for Joe Woodley as well. So, no matter what happens this weekend, we will have Joe on for another Wednesday next week. But let's hope this train keeps rolling. So good luck to the Drake football team this Saturday noon kickoff as they take on the 11 seed South Dakota Coyotes in the FCS playoffs. That will do it for today's show. A huge thank you to Kelly's Little Nipper, Joe Woodley, and of course, you guys, the listeners. Thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe, like, and comment before you leave, and we will see you on Friday. Yes, we are still doing a show despite, it being a holiday week. We will have a show Friday where we get to break down the Drake football game. We have the Drake men playing in the Emerald Coast Classic, as well as great college football games to get to as well. We will see you then. Have a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving. We are very thankful for your support. We will see you on Friday.